Hello and welcome. My name is Alan, and we are back with more 2025 to 2026 state governments and officials. And in this video, we are looking at the state of Vermont. So, yeah, let's dig into this. Where is my mouse? It went somewhere. There it is. Nicknamed the Green Mountain State, which, if you recognize the name Vermont, it is actually from French, Green Mountain. So, yeah. You can see there where it sits in the U.S., way up there in the corner. And the capital is Montpelier, but the largest city is Burlington. So yeah, which I think a majority of the people that live there live in Burlington. But it is a landlocked state in the New England region of the northeastern United States and borders Massachusetts to the south, New Hampshire to the east, New York to the west, and the Canadian province of Quebec to the north. You can see now why the region is called New England, because you've got places like Hampshire, York, Jersey, but they're all new. So, yeah. According to the most recent U.S. Census estimates, estimated population is 648,493, making it the second least populated of all U.S. states, but it is the sixth smallest state by total area. Its capital of Montpelier is the least populated U.S. state capital. No other U.S. state has a most populous city with fewer residents than Burlington. So yeah, it's got such a low population. But yeah, it's alright. Anyway, let's dig into their history of constitutions here. It was adopted in 1793 following their admission to the Union in 1791 and is largely based upon an earlier constitution of the Vermont Republic, which was drafted at Windsor in the old Constitution House and amended in 1786. It is also the shortest U.S. state constitution, so a lot of shortest, least, lower end. So yeah. Vermont, I guess you could say one of the things you could say about them is we don't need a lot. But yeah, Vermont Republic. So I guess that was just what they called themselves when they were a territory, maybe? Because I know they weren't one of the original states, but it didn't take them long to become a state. So yeah. Constitutional conventions have been held, though, in 1777, 1786, 1793. And then you had other conventions after that, but I don't think they did any new constitutions. They may have amended some, but 1814, 1822, 1828, 1836, 1843, 1850, 1857, and 1870. Now, let's go ahead and take a look at the government of Vermont, and we'll begin, as we usually do, with the executive branch. You have six elected officers. So yeah, we won't go with what Wikipedia has for elected officers. We'll use what I was able to pull up. Come on, mouse. Your governor, Phil Scott. Your lieutenant governor, John Rogers. Attorney General, Charity R. Clark. The Secretary of State, Mike Piechiak. I'm probably butchering the name, but I kind of doubt it's just Piechiak. It might be. I don't know. Anyway, it's him. Secretary of State is Copeland Hanzus. And your auditor is someone I have not pulled up. I don't say much about meet the auditor or anything. Usually I've got that, but I'm not seeing it. There he is, Douglas Hoffer. Now, with that, let's take a quick look at the cabinet for Governor Scott's cabinet. Your Agency of Administration, Secretary Sarah Clark. Agency of Agriculture, Secretary Anson Tebbets. Agency of Commerce and Community Development, Secretary Lindsay Curry. Agency of Digital Services, Secretary Denise Riley Hughes. Agency of Education, Secretary Zoe Saunders. Department of Financial Regulation, Acting Commissioner Sandy Bigglestone. Agency of Human Services, Jenny Samuelson. Department of Labor, Commissioner Kendall Smith. Department of Liquor and Lottery, Commissioner Wendy Knight. Department of Public Safety, Commissioner Jennifer Morrison. Department of Public Service, Carrick Johnson. Agency of Natural Resources, Secretary Julie Moore. And Agency of Transportation, Secretary Joe Flynn. I didn't see an adjutant general to lead the military. Interesting. But anyway, that being said, let's take a little further in-depth look at the governor. Phil Scott is your current governor. Their term lengths are 2 years, but is no term limits. Let's see. Their ceremonial office is the State House, but it has a working office, it says, of the Pavilion. So, okay, sure. They're the head of government, and is elected an even number of years by direct vote for a term of 2 years. Vermont and neighboring New Hampshire are the only states to hold gubernatorial elections every 2 years instead of 4. No limit on terms. If no candidate receives at least 50% plus 1 vote of all votes for governor cast in the election, the governor of Vermont is then elected by the state legislature. So, if the people can't get a 50 plus decision made for the governor, then the legislature comes in and chooses. The incumbent Vermont governor, like we said, Phil Scott, despite having a Republican governor, it is the most Democratic Cook partisan voting index of any of the 50 states at D plus 17. So very Democrat minded, but it's not like they're gonna turn away another party member as long as they've got good ideas and do a good job. So yeah, pretty cool. So yeah. Now let's go ahead and take a look at the list of governors for Vermont. For the Republic of Vermont, so before it was an actual state, you had the first governor being Thomas Chittenden, politician, leader of the territory for nearly 2 decades, and was the state's first and third governor. This, like I said, it was still unrecognized as a independent state. We get Moses Robinson next, politician, first Chief Justice, and then 1 term as governor. And this is still under it as the Republic of Vermont. He led the negotiations that got Vermont admitted to the Union as the 14th state, so that's pretty interesting. There are 13 original colonies, and then Vermont's number 14. And you get Thomas Chittenden again as governor. So yeah. Then we get the state of Vermont. Thomas Chittenden again as the state, but this time he would serve until he died in office. He would be followed by Paul Brigham. Don't move, mouse. I'm trying to read. American Revolutionary soldier and politician, second lieutenant governor of Vermont. After that state was admitted to the Union in 1791, and upon the death of Vermont's first governor, Thomas Chittenden, he served as governor. It wasn't for a long period, though. He didn't want to be governor, apparently. August to October of 1797. Then we get our next governor, number 3, Isaac Tichenor. Lawyer, politician, third and fifth governor, and also was a senator for Vermont. Israel Smith, lawyer, politician, held a number of positions in Vermont when it was a state, serving as a member of the House of Representatives for Vermont, a member in the Senate for Vermont, its fourth governor. So yeah, Isaac Tichenor is back. Jonas Belusha, sixth and eighth governor. So yeah. And then we get Martin Chittenden, politician, was a U.S. representative, seventh governor. And led Vermont during the War of 1812. So he followed up Thomas Chittenden. I'm kind of guessing he's probably related to Thomas Chittenden, but yeah. Jonas Belusha is back. Richard Skinner, politician, attorney, and ninth governor. And then we have Cornelius P. Van Ness, politician, diplomat, 10th governor of Vermont. Envoy extraordinary and minister plenipotentiary to the Kingdom of Spain, so he worked as a diplomat for them. Oh well, diplomat for the U.S. to Spain. Then we get Ezra Butler, clergyman, politician, lawyer, 11th governor. Samuel C. Crafts, representative, senator, and 12th governor of Vermont. William A. Palmer, lawyer, politician, prominent in the anti-Masonic Party. He also served as a U.S. senator for Vermont, besides his governorship. So, Silas H. Jennison. Stop it. His full name being Silas Hemingway Jennison. Anti-Masonic and Whig politician who served as the 11th Lieutenant Governor and the 14th Governor of Vermont. And the first one of the governors born in the state of Vermont. Okay. And Charles Payne, politician, woolen mill owner, merchant, railroad builder, and 15th governor of Vermont. Then we get John Maddox, William Slade, Horace Eaton, Carlos Coolidge, Charles K. Williams, Erastus Fairbanks, John S. Robinson, Stephen Royce, Ryland Fletcher, Hilland Hall, and then we get into the Civil War. Erastus Fairbanks. Is that the same? Yep. Same Erastus Fairbanks. Okay. Frederick Holbrook. I think maybe we didn't on him, but okay. J. Gregory Smith and Paul Dillingham, post Civil War. John B. Page, Peter T. Washburn, George Whitman Hindy, John Walcott Stewart, Julius Converse, Asahel Peck, Horace Fairbanks, and he rings in the end of Reconstruction, Redfield Proctor, Roswell Farnham, John L. Barstow, Samuel E. Pingree, Ebenezer J. Ormsby, William P. Dillingham, Carol S. Page, Levi K. Fuller, Urban A. Woodbury, Josiah Grout, Edward Curtis Smith. That brings us into the 1900s. William W. Stickney, John G. McCullough, Charles J. Bell, Fletcher D. Proctor, George H. Prouty, John A. Meade, Alan M. Fletcher, Charles W. Gates, Horace F. Graham, Percival W. Clement, James Hartness, Redfield Proctor Jr., Franklin S. Billings, John E. Weeks. That name sounds familiar. Stanley C. Wilson, Charles Manley Smith, George Aiken, William Henry Wills, Mortimer R. Proctor. There's a lot of Proctors I'm noticing. Ernest W. Gibson Jr., Harold J. Arthur, Lee E. Emerson, Joseph B. Johnson, Robert Stafford, F. Ray Keiser Jr. Keiser or Kaiser. And then we start to mix, because guess what? We're in that switchover between the two parties. We're in that point where the two parties are experiencing their ideological switches. So we get Democrat Philip H. Hoff, which I think he's the first Democrat to ever hold governorship. I haven't. Oh, there's one. Way back at 22. A lot of Whigs, anti-Masonic, National Republican, Democratic Republican, Federalist. Yeah. So only the second Democrat ever to hold office. Is Philip H. Hoff. Then we get another Republican, Dean C. Davis. Democrat, Thomas P. Salmon. Republican, Richard A. Snelling. Democrat, Madeline Coonan. Republican, Richard A. Snelling again. Democrat, Howard Dean. Republican, Jim Douglas. Democrat, Peter Shumlin. Republican, Phil Scott. So, it's not any one political bias, but they tend to lean very much Democrat. Interesting. Good for you for not being brain dead, follow what you usually do, or follow a party just because that's what you've always done. It's good on you guys. Good on you. Now let's look at the legislature, which is called the General Assembly for Vermont. not the first time we've seen that name. It is bicameral, Senate and a House of Representatives. It has a Senate President named John Rogers, who is, of course, the Lieutenant Governor, which leads to the Senate President pro tempore being Philip Baruth and House Speaker Jill Krowinski. There are 30 seats in its Senate, with one being the Progressive Party, 13 being Republican, and 16 being Democrat. So again, very kind of middle of the road. Let's look at his House of Representatives here. Ooh, that still fairly even, but it's a little more Democrat. You have 4 members of the Progressive Party, 87 Democrats, and 3 Independents, and 56 Republicans. I like y'all. You don't just vote for the 2 big parties, you got others in there. That's rare to see in a lot of states. Good on y'all. Legislative elections are held in November of every even-numbered year. Representatives and senators serve 2-year terms. Must be a resident of the state for 2 years and of the legislative district for the 1 year immediately preceding the election in order to qualify for either house. It's empowered to make law, though the governor can veto a bill, but that veto can be overridden by a 2/3 majority in each chamber. Has the sole power to propose amendments to the Constitution of Vermont. Amendment must originate in the Senate and receive a 2/3 vote, and it must also receive a majority vote in the House. Any amendment that passes both houses must be repassed by majority votes after a newly elected legislature is seated again, first in the Senate, then in the House. The proposed amendment must then be passed by a majority of the state's voters at a referendum. Okay. One town, one vote. Up until 1965, each city-town elected one representative to the Vermont House of Representatives, regardless of the population of the municipality. That changed with the U.S. Supreme Court's 1964 decree of one man, one vote in Reynolds v. Sims, which affected all state legislatures across the Union because of the Supremacy Clause, where it was a decision by the Supreme Court, and thus all other states needed to follow it. Let's see. The judiciary. You have the Vermont Supreme Court. It has no intermediate appellate courts, and thus the Supreme Court is the sole appellate court in the state, mainly hearing appeals on the questions of law from lower courts, although they have some instances where they have original jurisdiction. Let's see. You also have Superior Court. The Constitution of Vermont provided for creating lower courts with original and appellate jurisdiction that can be divided into geographical and functional divisions, as well as provided by law or by judicial rule adopted by the Supreme Court, not inconsistent with law. The state constitution also provides that state courts may act as both courts of law and courts of equity. They also apparently had at one point, I don't know if they still do, more than likely, district courts, family courts, superior courts are the trial level court, 40 judges in each of the 14 counties with 5 divisions. Civil, criminal, family, and probate divisions in each county, while the environmental division exercises statewide jurisdiction. Yeah, there it talks about the environmental division and Supreme Court justices. Lists them all. Vacancies and pending nominations. Probate courts, it also mentions. Vermont Judicial Bureau, specialized court with jurisdiction over civil violations of Vermont law and municipal ordinances. So yeah, let's look at that. Let's dig in a little bit more into the Supreme Court. The actual Supreme Court of Vermont was created in 1782 before it became a state. So yeah, 5 positions, a Chief Justice and 4 Associate Justices, and it is the highest judicial authority for Vermont. And being the only appellate court, it hears appeals directly from the trial courts. You don't say nothing about if they're elected or appointed. Okay, there we go. When a judicial vacancy occurs, the Judicial Nominating Board submits to the governor the names of any persons as it deems qualified for appointment. All justices come up for retention elections at the same time every 6 years. The court, let's see, the justices are appointed by the governor on a normal round, though, and then they get retention votes. Senate confirms them into office. But your Vermont Supreme Court judges, Chief Justice Paul Reiber, and Associate Justices Harold Eaton Jr., Nancy Wapples, and it's got 2 vacancies. So right now it's only a 3-judge panel. Interesting. But that will be the look at the state of Vermont, and thus will bring us to the end of the video. As always, educate thyself. Think, read, study, learn. Someone tells you something you have trouble believing, ask them to cite their sources, and it's got to be halfway decent sources. It can't just be some blog post or some junk source. But as always, thank you for watching. I'll see you all in the next one. Until then, later.